Welcome to So That Reminds Me, Reminder Publishing's bi-weekly podcast discussing Western Mass news. I'm Payton North.
And I'm Dennis Hackett.
And we'll be your hosts for today's episode. Dennis, welcome back to the office. Would you like to tell our listeners what you've been up to?
Yeah, so last week I took the week off and ended up going to Ireland with my dad. So we flew in Friday afternoon, 2 Fridays ago. And we flew into Dublin from Boston, rented a car in Dublin, and then drove literally across the country to meet up with my brother in Galway.
How long did that take?
2 hours. So it's you're thinking it's like going across Massachusetts.
Just
it's
going
not
over to
like
Boston, yeah. Huh. I would have thought it would be way longer, but that proves how little I know about the size of Ireland.
Yeah. So once we got into Galway, we hooked up with my brother there. He was studying abroad. Got to see Galway for a couple of days. It was really cool. Nice. Our hotel was right in the middle of the center there in Galway, so that was cool. And then from there, we road tripped the northern half of the country. So after Galway, we went up to Sligo, which is like a nice little town on the water, or kind of town city on the water, and we stayed at a really nice hotel there. And down the road from Galway, there's like this whole beach area, and it's like being there in the summer, but it's 50 degrees out and 40 in the water, and people are still out there swimming and surfing.
That's insane.
So it was really interesting to see that. From Sligo, we made our way up to Derry, which is on the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. And the interesting thing about Derry is there's a lot of history there. Pretty notorious events like Bloody Sunday took place there. And the big kind of difference there is that it's Northern Ireland is UK territory, so it's pretty much ruled by the British, and that's been a contentious point in Irish history because there's people on both sides, some that want a fully independent Ireland from Britain to get away from that, while there are others that are still kind of remaining loyal to the crown and wanting to be a part of that. And one of the interesting things about Derry is you'll see there's 2 different sections of the town. The top part is in a walled area. There's a big cathedral up there, and there's a lot. That's where most of the hotels, the restaurants, and that type of stuff is. And it's a bit, like the center of the city. And then in the lower area, where in what people call Free Derry, which is where the people are that want to really be with the Republic of Ireland as opposed to the UK, it's more suburbs, and there's a lot of graffiti and just kind of political messaging over there. And it's interesting to see the kind of dynamic there. And then from Derry, we made our way to Belfast, which was really cool. And though I'm going to complain a little bit here about Ireland, their coffee sucks.
Ooh, really? Wow.
The entire time I was there, all I wanted was a good American coffee. There was no Dunkin'. That was the first thing I got when I got home, by the way. It was
What
a
makes
Dunkin'
their
Ice.
coffee suck?
It's just, there's something different about it. And I can't put my finger on it. They don't have, like, their regular coffee is what was off. Like, their espressos, their lattes and all that stuff were normal, but I don't drink those usually. I drink normal coffee. But what we did was we got into Belfast, and my brother's like, we're going here. And we went to a Tim Hortons. And it was like the only Tim Hortons in the area, and they had regular coffee with half and half in cream. Everywhere else, it's milk or black. And for those who don't know, I'm not the biggest fan of milk. I think it's kind of gross.
I too think milk is gross. I don't like milk. I don't understand. I can't believe we're talking about drinking milk on this podcast. I never saw this for us, but it's disgusting. Milk's meant... Yeah, I shouldn't even. But milk is meant for baby cows, not for humans. But who am I to all the milk drinkers of the world?
Yeah.
Well, that stinks. I can't imagine I would not have a good cup of coffee for that long. That would kill me, actually.
Yeah. And then from there, Dad and I made our way back to Dublin, where my brother, he was going on another trip, so he went down to the airport there, and we left him there, and then it was the 2 of us for the last 2 days, and we were completely drained after hiking like 10 miles into the forest to go see where they filmed the first scene of Game of Thrones the day before. So the following day was very chill. We went to the Guinness Brewery and then just relaxed for the rest of the day.
Nice. Sounds like a lot of fun. Is your dad a Game of Thrones fan?
No.
Oh, so he did that for you?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, they did that for me, but my dad is going to end up watching it. That was when we were talking about all that stuff. He's like, yeah, I'm going to watch this now. So
nice. That sounds like fun. I've never been to Ireland. I've never been to Europe, so adding it to the list.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, it was my second trip to Europe. My freshman year of college, I was able to study in London for 6 weeks, so that was a cool experience. But I really liked what we did this time and being able to see a full country as opposed to just being stuck to one city.
Yeah,
but it was fun. So what kind of fun did you have here while I was off exploring Ireland?
So funny that you asked me that. I mostly spent my week doing your work. Luckily, I have Chris Mazzo over here, who was wonderfully helpful. But on the plus side, while I was slaving doing 2 jobs, I went to the Bay Path Women's Conference. They have it every year, and they hosted it at the Mass Mutual Center. And it was really fun. This year was my first year going to it, and it's basically just like a whole day surrounding women's empowerment and inspirational speakers, and they have breakout sessions where you can choose 2 breakout sessions in the day. There's 4 different ones, and they're based around different topics. But there were 2 speakers. Well, the 3 keynote speakers were all amazing, but 2 in particular I loved. Barbara Corcoran from the show Shark Tank was there. She was the keynote speaker at the end of the day, and she was just amazing. She was hilarious. I didn't really know much about her leading into the event, so listening to her, she was just hilarious. She's in her 70s. I think she's 75, and she is just clearly no filter. She was swearing. It was so funny. And there's a question and answer portion, so people got to ask questions to the keynotes. And she just had hilarious advice for people starting businesses and working in real estate. So that was really great. And then I really liked our lunchtime speaker, which was Amy Purdy. I don't know if you've ever heard of her.
I haven't.
She is in her 40s now, but when she was 19, she had I believe it was some sort of bacterial meningitis. And when that came about, she unfortunately lost both of her legs from the knee down. And at the time, she was a big snowboarder. She loved snowboarding. That was her favorite hobby, favorite sport. And she was so upset that she wasn't going to be able to snowboard. So she actually showed on a slide all the different feet and legs that she created with her. She kept on saying, like, it wasn't her foot doctor because it's not a doctor. Her foot maker. She's like, my foot maker was sending me all these feet, and they wound up making special feet so that she would be able to turn her ankles in the ways that you need to ride a snowboard down a mountain. So all this to say, she wound up going to creating the Paralympics for folks who either are missing one leg or both legs. And she got 2 bronze Olympic medals and 1 silver Olympic medal in snowboarding. And she just was phenomenal. She was so inspirational. And also, she wound up going on Dancing with the Stars. She's had such a career in media. She's been on magazine covers. So it was really the classic lemons to lemonade speech. She took this horrible thing that happened to her that would really debilitate anyone, and she just ran with it, and she made an entire career out of it. And now she's doing inspirational speaking about how she made an entire career out of something awful that happened to her. So it was definitely super inspirational, and I really enjoyed my time at the women's conference with all the other Reminder ladies who joined me. And I look forward to next year already.
Nice. Sounds like it was an interesting time.
Yeah, it was great. So what do you say? Let's get into these topics.
Yeah, so as always, we're going to be talking about 5 of the biggest stories in our communities, starting with Southwick being in a bit of a tizzy over the appointment of the police chief, the recent hockey regional that took place in Springfield that was considered a hands-down win for the economy, a follow-up on the report that MGM Springfield may be looking to sell or cease operations, a new restaurant called Lola's opening up in Longmeadow, and then some residents showing support for a proposed Agawam hotel that we had previously discussed that had gotten some pushback for that. And we'll get started with our first topic right after a couple of brief messages.
Bring It Home magazine takes the best in the home renovation or home building business to your door. Featuring countless local businesses, Bring It Home helps Western Massachusetts and Connecticut homeowners, both new and seasoned, find the best of the best to suit their home's needs. The magazine is host to articles on local businesses explaining the latest trends from outdoor necessities to indoor design. For advertising information or to view Bring It Home online, go to thereminder.com.
Since the founding of Reminder Publishing over 60 years ago, The Reminder has brought local businesses together with their customers, your neighbors and friends, through our advertising and coverage. Over the past 4 years, The Reminder has been adding to its reporting capabilities and expanding our readership while other newspapers in the region, state, and country have scaled back or closed. We want local journalism to thrive and grow and are asking readers and listeners to support and participate. The Reminder Press Club's mission is to ensure that local journalism is sustainable and leading healthy community discussions. The Reminder Press Club is a way for you to support the crucial work of professional reporters covering the vital stories in our community. Learn more about the Reminder Press Club or join at reminderpressclub.com.
And we're back. Our first topic of the day is one I've been dying to talk about on the podcast. The town of Southwick has appointed their new police chief, current Lieutenant Rhett Banish, who we've had an interesting time covering over the past month. Now, typically we lay out the specifics of an article, but in this one, we are going to include a bit of inside baseball first, and then I want to get into the specifics of the allegations going on here and then have some discussion. So trying to keep this organized for our listeners, as this is going to be a bit of a doozy of the topic, but a very important one. So some background. Last year, in 2023, current Southwick Police Chief Robert Landis announced he would retire in 2024 after nearly 3 decades with the Southwick PD. The Select Board agreed after some deliberation to only accept applications for the position from currently serving members of the force. The requirements needed by the applicants were at least 12 years' experience in law enforcement or a related field and 5 years of supervisory experience. The candidates must also have maintained full police officer qualifications with post. There were 4 members of the Southwick Police Departments who met those requirements, but only Banish and Detective Sergeant Thomas Krutka applied to be chief. Our staff writer Cliff Clark, who writes for both our Westfield News Daily paper and our original Penny Saver, received an anonymous email detailing accusations about Rhett Banish, stating that there was proof that Banish violated an individual who was arrested's Fourth Amendment rights by going through their phone without consent. There was a series of other accusations as to what specifically he was looking at, but nothing that could be clearly substantiated. So that was back in the beginning of March. From there, over the course of the month, Cliff spoke with the current police chief, Robert Landis, a couple of select board members, a few other sources, and Banish himself. He submitted a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Request form, for those who might not know what it is, from the Southwick PD, where he requested the internal investigation files of both Banish and Krutka. He also submitted a FOIA for the booking room footage from the arrest that was indicated in the anonymous email, as the email suggested the footage would prove Banish violated the Fourth Amendment. When Cliff received the files for Banish and Krutka, Krutka's was empty, other than the one single sheet, which was a printout of Cliff's FOIA request. Banish's, however, had numerous papers within it. It was about an inch thick. It was thick. There were a lot of files in there. So it indicated he'd been the subject of several investigations since he joined the force in October of 2000.
I'll just run through the facts of Cliff's article, which was published in the Westfield News and on Mass Live on March 29th, 3 days prior to the Select Board hosting interviews for Banish and Krutka. Banish's file showed he was issued 2 written warnings and 1 letter of reprimand, and was found to have violated the Fourth Amendment rights of at least 2 individuals arrested. On the Fourth Amendment violations, Banish wasn't reprimanded, but the state's Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission, or POST, concluded he demonstrated unprofessionalism and other violations, policies and procedures violations, and rules and regulations violations. The Post spokesperson told Cliff that these findings will be included in the next update of the Historical Disciplinary Records database. Cliff contacted Banish and asked him if he wanted to provide explanations to the warnings, reprimand, and the Fourth Amendment violations. Banish responded with a letter in which he took issue with some of the incidents being included in his record, but acknowledged making mistakes over his tenure with the department. He wrote, "While I do not agree with some of the information presented in my file, I took responsibility for my actions as I feel accountability does foster respect for creating a positive culture within the police department."
Continuing on in the article, Banish also provided explanations for each of the incidents in his file, except for the alleged Fourth Amendment violation. The Fourth Amendment concern came to light in April of 2017 when an attorney representing an individual who'd been arrested was alleging police use excessive force and requested a copy of the booking room video of the person arrested. As part of the investigation into the excessive force allegation, then Chief David Riccardi watched the booking room video, which showed Banish, who was a sergeant at the time, standing at the booking desk and scrolling through the person's cell phone. Under most circumstances, a search warrant is required to search a person's cell phone. When Riccardi wrote to Banish, he said he had, quote, heard whispers of similar incidents, although no formal complaint was made, and decided to check other recent videos. When he checked, Riccardi found another booking room video from 2 weeks after the first incident. In this video, which was provided to the Westfield News, the person arrested on March 27, 2017, is standing at the booking room counter and is shown using their cell phone. After they finish the call, the person puts the phone on the counter, and it was taken by another officer in the room and placed behind the counter in what appears to be a basket. Another officer, there were 3 in the booking room, including Banish, began helping the arrested person get to a bathroom. While the 2 officers were helping the arrested person, Banish steps behind the counter, picks up the cell phone from the basket, and begins scrolling through it. One of the officers walks up to the counter and asks Banish, "Will you leave that damn phone alone?" Banish says no. The same officer then asks Banish, "What are you doing?" Banish didn't answer. A few minutes later, the officer told Banish he was going to take the phone and turn it off. Banish responded, "No, you're not." Another minute or two, the officer asked Banish if he was done yet. "No," Banish responded. According to the video, Banish then spent nearly 8 minutes scrolling through the phone. In the letter Riccardi sent Banish, he ordered him to create a department lesson plan to educate other officers on the legal issues associated with cell phone searches in lieu of formal punishment.
Moving on to the written warnings, in March 2019, Banish, who was still a sergeant, was given a written warning for neglect of duty by then-Chief Kevin Bishop for leaving his police cruiser to wash his personal vehicle. In Banish's employee file provided to the Westfield News, there was also a 2015 written warning for allegedly falsifying records in April 2015. Banish disputes that it was supposed to be included in his file. That year, Banish attended a mandatory training with 2 other officers. Riccardi, who was chief at the time, questioned how Banish entered the training hours on his time card. Banish wrote he was shocked to receive a written warning and provided Riccardi with scheduling documents that justified the time he claimed. He said he met with Riccardi, and after the chief saw the new info, he was told that he wouldn't be disciplined and the warning letter would be expunged from his record. It was not. Finally, there was a letter of reprimand from 2011 in Banish's file. On March 28, 2011, Banish was issued a letter of reprimand from then-Chief Mark Kranicki about comments he considered derogatory involving an entry into the public police log. The entry involved a vehicle that was found unoccupied in town. When officers determined who owned it, they called a woman that they knew was a friend of the owner in an attempt to find him. The woman was a town employee. Banish, while never seeing the woman and only talking to her on the phone, wrote in the log that it was obvious that she was intoxicated. The woman called the department to lodge a complaint. An investigation conducted by then-Lieutenant Riccardi found the woman should not have been the focal point of his investigation. However, Banish disputes that the letter should have been included in his internal affairs investigation file.
So that's where we wrap up Cliff's first article on this. And, I mean, let's think about this. We have 2 candidates up for an incredibly important job in the community, police chief. One candidate has nothing in his file, and the other has a file that's an inch thick of violations.
Yeah, it's definitely a little head-scratching to me, at least when you have one who has a completely clean record, and the only thing in there is a request from us. But then the other candidate, who, as we mentioned earlier, was named the police chief, has an inch-thick file, and it's just, it's to me, it's a little mind-boggling.
Yeah, and I mean, we were talking about this earlier. I was talking about this with Cliff. even if the Southwick Select Board felt that, we've got this candidate who clearly has had these issues, maybe we shouldn't go with him. Maybe they didn't feel like Krutka was experienced enough, and we'll get to that. But I just don't understand why we wouldn't just go back to the drawing board at that point. Why are we not forcing, but why are we doing this if this person clearly has had a record of not doing the right thing? I mean, have we not learned from this?
Yeah, and looking at Cliff's reporting, obviously to me, the decision to narrow the focus of who can apply to just being internal candidates was interesting to me.
They were super passionate about that.
Yeah.
Super passionate about that. And then when you think even further about it, I'm sorry, I'm taking your point, but like the 12, it has to be 12 years of experience, just felt so specific to me.
Yeah. No, it definitely did. But really thinking about that, when I've covered police chiefs being appointed, I know in other communities, you'll have a candidate or two from within, but then you'll be able to see other candidates from outside, typically.
Yeah.
When I was covering Belchertown's search for their next chief, before Kevin Pakunis was named that chief, who was in the department, they had interviewed, I want to say, a candidate from East Longmeadow as well as North Brookfield. And I think by seeing these people's others' experiences and stuff, it gives you the opportunity to see what's maybe outside your department and what kind of new approach somebody could bring to it.
Yeah. And so I also, regarding the booking room footage, not only these people who were in the room with him who saw him do this, and also all of his coworkers now and people who are working for him have seen him break the rules and kind of get away with it. Like, what does that set as a precedence for everyone else? Do they feel like they can do this and break rules now and it's going to be okay? I don't know. But, I mean, I watched the footage from the booking room and I listened to the audio of the other officers questioning him. And you see the other two officers exchanging glances and shaking their heads that he was blatantly going through the phone and continuing to do so and questioned multiple times about stopping. And it's just so baffling to me. If one of my coworkers said to me, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like basically saying, "You're not supposed to be doing that," I would be so embarrassed and I would stop. So the fact that he didn't repeatedly, what does that say?
Well, and obviously our situation's apple to oranges because if one of us was doing that, it's not like we're violating somebody's rights by continuing to do something that's wrong.
Right. Yeah, honestly, I didn't know what the public response would be on this at the select board meeting, but I figured it would be some level of outrage. We've been talking on the podcast for several episodes at this point of the racist incidents going on in Southwick schools, and I figured there would be a similar level of passion from residents coming out against Banish being considered for this role, given what we know. Like I said, like we all know, it's an incredibly important job. You want someone who leads by example in this role and someone that you're confident is going to do the right thing when faced for a hard decision or temptation. So imagine my surprise when Cliff walked into our office in Westfield at 8 a.m. the morning after the select board meeting where they hosted the interviews, and I asked him what happened, and he said Banish was elected unanimously.
Did they discuss any of these allegations at the meeting?
Nope. The only apparent reference to these allegations was when Select Board member Jason Perrone, who serves as a Westfield police officer, said, "As someone who's been through this process at different levels, I know what it takes to get to these posts. That being said, people learn from mistakes. Mistakes are made, and if they are a learning tool, people can be redeemed." That's it. No other discussion. He wasn't asked about it. Nothing. I was genuinely floored by this.
According to Cliff's article about the meeting, dozens of people watched online and in person as Krutka and Banish were interviewed, but when they asked for comments, there was silence. Banish and Krutka then spent nearly 2 hours answering a series of questions posed by the select board members. The two were asked about why they were the most qualified, how they've prepared themselves, and more. Banish's responses relied heavily on the training he's received since being promoted to lieutenant in 2021 in handling administrative tasks such as budgeting, personnel management, and union matters. Krutka, who started his career at the department as a patrol officer in 2004 before being appointed as the handler for the K-9 Jacks in 2007 and sergeant in 2017, highlighted his experience and skills he developed fighting crime. Krutka also admitted that if selected chief, it would be a learning experience. After the select board finished questions, select board member Doug Moglen asked for a motion. Perron adjusted himself in his seat and rubbed his face with his hands and then started saying, "Tonight I came here. Originally I was going to pick either one. I was going to insist on going to an assessment center again because I think both these gentlemen are both qualified and are eligible subjects for the chief's position." He cleared his throat and then continued. "After observing the interviews, I was definitely swayed. Coming from my expertise, there's a lot of stuff that's been going on. A lot of things I had to review, a lot of things I had to talk to people about, and then he made a motion to appoint Banish." Select Board member Diane Gale agreed that she got a lot of input and that Banish had the most experience and both were equally dedicated. She seconded Perron's motion. Moglen said there had been a lot of conversations with a lot of members of the department and continued on later saying, "I know it's been arduous. I know there's been a lot of back and forth and there's been a lot of whatever you want to call it," Moglen said, seemingly alluding to the media attention surrounding the candidates. He then put the appointment forward for a vote.
Cliff closes the article stating that once he's sworn in, Banish will be the only officer on the force who will be included in the state's post database for unprofessionalism and other violations, policies and procedure violations, and rules and regulations violations because of the Fourth Amendment violations. Now, yesterday Cliff came up to me and showed me a piece of paper that was mailed to him anonymously. It's a printout from the Post database that highlights a former Southwick police officer and shows a log for this individual in the Post database. I think the person who sent it in was trying to make a point that Banish won't be the only Southwick police officer with a Post entry, but that's not what Cliff's article said. Cliff specifically said Banish will be the only officer on the force who will be included in the Post database. This other person's no longer on the force. So since this, prior to the second select board meeting that happened this week where there was no public comment on this, I was a little bit surprised because over the prior weekend on Facebook in the Southwick forums, people were talking decently heavily about this. One woman came out and shared her personal experience with Banish and how he allegedly didn't save her husband's life and intervene in a scenario where she alleges that he should have. And people were just calling for a recall. And there was actually a change.org petition that was set out that at the time last weekend, I haven't checked since, there was 150 signatures on the petition calling for him to not be the chief. People were saying, "Oh, attend the meeting on Monday, attend the meeting. We need to make our voices heard." Well, no one attended the meeting. I asked Cliff how many people were at the meeting, if anyone said anything. He said there was about 10 people total at the meeting, a couple on Zoom, a couple in person, and no one said anything. There was no public comment. So I don't know what's going on here. It's crazy to me. I just can't imagine. If this was in, I feel like, any of our communities, there would be so much public discussion surrounding this. And I don't know what's going on or why we're not seeing that in droves right now, but there is a lot happening in Southwick for what it's worth. So maybe everyone's focused on that, which is perfectly fine. I wish Banish the best. I hope that it's only up from here and he's learned from his mistakes and is dedicated to doing a good job on the behalf of the town. So if anyone is interested in the articles, they are located on Mass Live, or you can pick up the Westfield News.
For our next topic, we will be discussing the recent hockey regional that took place in Springfield and its economic impact. This tournament included 3 games over the course of 2 days. The participants were the University of Massachusetts Amherst, the University of Maine, Cornell University, and the University of Denver. Denver won the regional final after defeating UMass and Cornell. Denver was chosen due to NCAA selection committee rules as opposed to the other top 3 teams in Boston University, Boston College, and Michigan State. UMass was guaranteed a spot in this tournament in Springfield as it was one of the co-hosts. Alongside UMass, AIC served as a co-host for the regional, and both schools were critical of the execution of the tournament. And this is the first time that the Mass Mutual Center has hosted a regional. NCAA Director for Championships and Alliances Chad Tolliver told Reminder Publishing that given the turnout and strong showing by organizers, Springfield likely earned the opportunity to host similar events in the future if it chose to enter a bid.
Overall, the tournament brought a pretty significant impact to the local economy. According to Mary Kay Wydra, president of the Greater Springfield Convention and Tourism Bureau, the tournament had a direct economic impact of $1.1 million, but the overall number was higher. Wydra said the $1.1 million is the number we are comfortable with right now. The overall impact is always higher, but we can't say right now exactly what that is. The hotel number will not be known until the end of April. Over the course of the regional, 10,172 fans attended the games. Despite challenges, including Easter weekend, Wydra called it a win hands down for our region.
Yeah, I was really interested in this topic. Chris and Tyler had brought it up at the last episode. And for me, as soon as I heard about the regional, one of the things I was keeping an eye on was Boston University going to be in it. For those who don't know, I'm a BU alum, and I really got my start in journalism covering the hockey team there. So I was really hoping that they were going to be able to come to Springfield and I'd be able to get a chance to watch them, but I was a little disappointed they didn't. Obviously, I understand that they weren't able to make it because of the complication with UMass being a guaranteed spot because they were one of the hosts. But it was definitely something to look for that I was hoping was going to happen, but obviously didn't. I didn't get a chance to get out to the games, but definitely paid attention, so it was cool. For more information about the regional, check out the story online at thereminder.com or in print for most of our Hampden County editions for the April 11th edition. And we'll be back for our next topics after some brief messages.
Are you planning your second act? Working on your bucket list? Investing for early retirement? If you've hit that point in life where time will soon be yours, let Prime Magazine be your guide. We're all about staying healthy and fit, keeping up with tech, traveling, local entertainment, managing finances, caring for your kids and elders, and much more. Pick up the latest copy of Prime Magazine every month. Prime, your best life now.
Every month, Reminder Publishing's Go Local magazine features the best Western Mass and Northern Connecticut businesses. With articles on new storefronts, coffee shops, restaurants, and more, Go Local magazine is your resource to find the best businesses to frequent in the area. Go Local also features original recipes, how-to pages on festive crafts, a listing of places to go and experiences to enjoy over the course of the month, and so much more. Pick up Go Local magazine at hundreds of businesses, banks, gas stations, and restaurants all over Western Mass and Northern Connecticut. Or check out Go Local magazine at thereminder.com.
Following up on uncertainty about the future of MGM Springfield that Chris and Tyler discussed at the last episode, Mayor Dominic Sarno recently met with MGM Resorts International CEO and President Bill Hornbuckle and MGM Springfield President and COO Luis Theros in response to a recent Bloomberg News report that, citing anonymous sources, stated that the entertainment giant was exploring the potential sale of its operations in Springfield, as well as its Northfield Park casino and horse race track in Ohio. Sarno said that his number one priority is to protect the taxpayers in Springfield. He said that the city will receive every dollar according to the city's host community agreement, and all entertainment and amenities will be fulfilled. He added that he has been in contact with Jordan Maynard, interim chair for the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, to make sure that HCA is going to be honored. However, multiple requests from us to the city solicitor have gone unanswered.
Massachusetts Gaming Commission Communications Division Chief Thomas Mills previously declined to answer specific questions on Springfield's host community agreement, referring those to the city. Mills said the issue would be addressed by the commission if MGM attempted to sell. As a publicly traded company, MGM Resorts officials are limited by regulations in what they can say about its operations, including any potential sale. After initially declining to respond to the report, which they called rumors, a spokesperson for MGM said MGM Resorts International remains dedicated to serving the best interest of the city of Springfield. The spokesperson called the meeting productive, and they are focused on the needs of the cities, its resident, and our team members. This is the first time Hornbuckle has been to Springfield since meeting in January of 2023 to discuss concerns about adherence to the HCA. At that time, he said the original evaluation of the market was off the mark, indicating that the casino may have been built elsewhere. So I entered onto the scene of covering journalism in our area in 2017. MGM opened in 2018, and it was honestly the best time to start working here because covering MGM's opening was truly the best week of work that I have ever had. Like, I don't know if it'll ever be topped, and that's kind of sad because it's been a while since 2018. But we had started that week with an exclusive tour of the casino, its hotel rooms, including the presidential suite, which is so cool. Every bar, the casino floor, the theaters, it was amazing. And you felt like really special because nobody else had seen it yet. So you were there. So that was really neat. They had a huge media unveil another day where the media were greeted with mimosas and healthy shots. And there was a donut wall. And they had the Blue Man Group do a show. It was a whole thing. And then the next day, they did a parade and officially opened the casino to the public. I remember going with our former executive editor, Mike Dobbs, and former staff writer, Jordan Houston, to the library bar and getting Tequila Mockingbird drinks that were served in a glass bird shape glass. And it was so cool, especially for 11 a.m. on a Friday. It was a great work day, great work week, but great way to end it. All that to say, I do remember at the time, prior to the opening and then during the first year, there being an incredibly watchful eye on everything MGM did. There's still a watchful eye, but it was so excruciating. There were people who looked at MGM as a savior to the community and the driver to bring people back downtown to enjoy everything Springfield has to offer. And then there were the people who looked at MGM as if it were a parasite, that they'd only be bringing riffraff and encouraging crime. Now people are feeling a few things. They're either feeling betrayed by MGM because of the investment that they were promised to the community, or people who doubted the casino are feeling the, told you so. And, it's just funny to see this contrast as we continue to figure out if this is going to happen or not, if they're going to sell.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wasn't a working reporter at the time the casino was being discussed or even built up, but obviously, since it's been here, I've definitely gone to the area. I remember when Wahlburgers was opening up, that was a big story that we were all kind of anxiously keeping an eye on about how that was going to go.
I will never not be bitter with Mike Dobbs over Wahlburgers. Mike Dobbs killed me that day when Mark Wahlberg was at the casino, and I said, Mike, someone just told me Mark Wahlberg's here. Let's go and meet him. And he's like, that's like a rumor. He's not here. We got to go back to the office. We go back to the office. I see photos of every other news outlet with Mark Wahlberg. And I was like, it's just like, this could have been the best week of my life. It was the best week of work, but it could have been the best week of my life. I'm just trying to meet Mark Wahlberg. So poor Mike, he didn't know he was going to get slandered on the podcast today, but he's so used to it at this point over this issue. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Let's talk more about Wahlburgers.
Yeah, that was just one of the things I remember when it was opening. It was something I looked forward to because back, as I mentioned earlier in this episode, I was at school in Boston, so I went to Wahlburgers in Fenway quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But then speaking kind of about the casino generally, like, I'm not a gambler. I might be a certified gambling hater. I'm not a big fan of the sports stuff, but I will. If anything happens where MGM does get sold, I really hope the movie theater stays as it is. That's my big thing. I go to that movie theater all the time.
Yep, same. That's like my movie theater of choice. I mean, realistically, on this side of the river, that of course is our movie theater of choice because what else? We go over the river to West Springfield. I don't even know. Is there another one?
No,
here Sturbridge, it's gone. Eastfield
Mall's gone. Enfield's gone.
Yeah, so that it would be such a disappointment if Regal changed or if they decided to not have the movie theater anymore. I don't know what they'd do because that's a lot of space. But yeah. And I like to go to the casino for other things too, but I also don't gamble. It's not for me.
No, and I definitely, as the reminder, we have memories there. I mean, one of the first things I did when I was here, when I joined up in 2019, we had a bowling night one day. And it was my first opportunity to really meet some of the other staff because at that point I was working in Westfield, mostly remote, not really interacting with people, but it was nice to be able to meet like the full East team at that point. And I remember after that, Payton and I and one of the former reporters, Danny Eaton, went to tap for dinner after that.
Yeah, that was nice. I mean, it's not like they're closing. I feel like we're saying this. It's like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, all these wonderful memories, and now they're gone. But it's just, I hope that if someone does buy it, if they are considering buying or selling, that they are able to maintain the character, because MGM it is a unique casino. It's smaller, but it's nice, and I like having it to go to as an option of all of our local places. So hopefully they'll be able to keep things going if they do decide to move on, if MGM decides to move on.
Yeah, and if it ends up going the other way, hopefully a good owner comes in and maintains status quo and people are able to still enjoy the facilities down there. All right, and we're going to continue to follow this story as more information continues to become available. And as always, keep an eye on our website and our print editions for any updates on this situation as they become available.
So I'm so excited to talk about this next topic, which I think can appeal to most folks. Longmeadow has officially welcomed their newest restaurant in town, Lola's Tacos, Tequila, and Oysters. Who doesn't love enjoying great food at a new restaurant? The folks who own esteemed Agawam restaurant, The Federal, along with Vintage Wine Bar in West Hartford and Longmeadow's beloved Posto, bring Lola's to town, promising coastal Mexican flavors. Co-owner Ralph Santinello said they wanted to open something different than their other restaurants. He describes the atmosphere as casual elegance. He described the food, saying, "We have light, clean flavors. Even the tacos are light and fresh. For instance, instead of using a lot of sauces and creams, he said, you let the ingredients shine through." Santinello said that when they decided they wouldn't make tortillas in-house, they started looking for a local vendor. He explained there's a Mexican family that lives in Hadley who run the restaurant Mia Tierra. They make tortillas using corn grown by a local farm and deliver fresh tortillas to Lola's every other day. So they really have a strong focus on fresh ingredients, clean ingredients, and just having a really unique experience for their patrons.
In addition to the food, Lola's also serves over 80 tequilas and mezcals for folks to choose from, and he said their raw bar has proven to be very popular so far. They employ between 60 and 70 people, and the restaurant can serve up to 131 people.
Fair warning to listeners, it was my best friend's birthday last week, and 2 days in advance I tried to make a reservation at Lola's, and they didn't have any availability online. At the time, I gave them a call just to be sure that was real, and they said that we should try to do a walk-in, or the bar seating is first come, first serve, but they were fully booked. It was a Friday night, so I guess I should have expected it, but they were fully booked. We did try to walk in, and they were like, it was 6:30 at the time, and they said, oh, well, the next thing we have is at 9:30. We said, okay, we're gonna go next door to Max Burger, but thank you. So I highly recommend making reservations well in advance if you're looking to try it out until the hype dies down. Another cool note of something they're doing, if you follow them on Instagram, every week they post a drink that they're calling Insta-famous. They explain on their menu that folks can look at the pinned post that week on Instagram to see what their beverage of the week is as it'll rotate. So that's neat. As of today, they have the El Diablo, which one can imagine is a little spicy margarita that has ginger beer in it. They definitely seem to be super inventive with their cocktails, which is something they carry throughout their other locations. They have another drink on their Instagram that's a coconut drink that quite literally has a full coconut popsicle sticking out of the top of it. It's on their drink menu, but it feels like it should be on their dessert menu to me. And maybe people do order it for dessert. That's what I would do. Mm-hmm. But it looks unreal.
Yeah, I always love seeing what kind of crazy concoctions different restaurants come up with for drinks or desserts or anything like that. But I will say, another Mexican restaurant, for those who don't know, I love Mexican food. So it's something I definitely want to check out at some point.
Yeah, add to the list.
Yeah, but obviously noting what Payton said about the wait time, one thing I always try to do with these newer restaurants is wait a little bit before I try to test them out. I remember the Raising Cane's, that was nuts with the first few weeks where the line in the parking lot was like, it would be like hours for waiting for just some chicken fingers. But
yeah, I still haven't gone there. I'm scared. I've been scared straight on that restaurant. Everybody was just waiting in line for forever. I just don't even want to try.
All I'll say is order online. Food will be ready when you get there.
Yeah.
I did that once, and then my mom did it a week or two after that, and both times food was ready to go as soon as we got there. But
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just happy to see another beautiful restaurant being embraced by the community, and it feels like everything this family touches turns to gold. All of their restaurants are just so wonderful. They're all so well attended. They're all so unique. So very happy for them. For the full story, head to thereminder.com.
For our final topic today, we're going to be following up on a story Chris and Tyler discussed last time about a new hotel potentially going into Agawam. The last discussion was about residents that were opposed to the hotel. At an April 1st City Council meeting, other residents discussed the potential benefits of the hotel. The proposed Opal Inn and Suites would have 42 rooms, said Rob Levesque of R. Levesque Associates, which is working with Shield Hotels on the project. It would be boutique style or smaller than the average hotel with only 3 floors. It would be located at 1422 Main Street behind Di Patron Mexican restaurant. Resident Lori Couture was in favor of the hotel and said the closer location than Springfield or West Springfield would be convenient and the revenue would support the town. Town Solicitor Stephen Buoniconti said the project would bring $150,000 a year in taxes if it is developed as proposed for $5 million. While some residents were in favor, others questioned if the hotel would be market rate or if it would allow homeless people or both. This was an issue that we discussed at the last episode as well. Donald Cook called the project pie in the sky because of a smaller draw when Six Flags closes for the season.
The previous meeting was before the planning board discussing site plan approval, while the matter was brought before the city council because of a zoning amendment change from residential A2 to business. Councilors affirmed they were voting on the zone change, not direct approval of the hotel. Councilor Edward Borgatti disagreed with the location, but was pro-business and didn't want to see the project stop or make it harder on the developers. Councillor George Bitzes said the surrounding area is zoned for business and the developers have a right to build there, but the council could only approve the change for the zoning. The council unanimously approved the zoning change. The next step for the projects includes site approval from the planning board, approvals from the Conservation Commission for environmental compliance, and approval from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to make a curb cut on Main Street, a state highway. I just think it's crazy. I side-eyed Chris. I've read this story a couple of times, and every time I read that people think that a boutique-style hotel is going to have like the fear of having homeless people living in it, they say. Boutique-style hotels are expensive, usually. Like, they're nice, classy places. I just don't understand the logic there, but it's not in my backyard, so that's all I fall back on. It's not in my backyard, so I can't relate, but it's just a wild concern for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think last week, Chris and Tyler had discussed that the cost of staying in the hotel was going to be around $200 per night or something around that mark, which I think people should look at and maybe like, oh, I don't think this is going to be for... Right.
There are cheaper options elsewhere that folks might consider if that it was a deterrent for them. So we will continue to follow the approval process for the hotel, so make sure to stay tuned at thereminder.com and in our print edition. And that wraps up this edition of So That Reminds Me.
Thanks for listening, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks to bring you our next episode.
Thanks for listening to So That Reminds Me, produced by Western Massachusetts news source Reminder Publishing. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, find the latest news at thereminder.com, and follow Reminder Publishing on Instagram at Reminder Publishing, on X at The Reminder MA, and on Facebook. Reminder Publishing, we are hometown news.